We're barely into the new year, and there's already so much that's happened. Sheikh Uthman is on the run to get away from God logic. David Wood is in a feud with Dr. Malik.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
Who might be the dumbest Muslim I've ever seen, and that's saying something.
Old girls older than 16 years old are not allowed to play with dolls. She played with dolls. She was older than 16.
He opened the banana for you.
Okay, Junior, let's keep this debate formal.
Put it in your mouth.
This guy Malik, he tries to go around doxing everybody, but he thinks that David Wood was a Mexican named David Segarra. And he has to pay people to come to his concerts. Anyway, if you're a Muslim and you're watching this, I want you to just notice how Jewish this Mossad agent looks. Oh, and look at that. His last name is Jewish. I don't know, it's just something to think about. I said a feud, but really, it's kind of more going like this.
I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
But I doxed you.
This gives you power over me?
Pure evil.
I'm necessary evil.
The Quran is such a stupid book.
Anyway, enough pleasantries. On to my video. In this video, I'm going to argue two things. The first is that Islam is obviously false because if Islam were true, it wouldn't confirm the gospel in any sense. Not a general sense, not a specific sense, any kind of sense. And the reason for this is if you go through the gospel, all of the main themes of the gospel contradict Islam. And it's the biggest shirk-making book ever in the history of religions. Because all these people are worshiping Jesus, so you wouldn't confirm a book that even rhymes with the name of the book that tells everybody to worship Jesus. Number two, looking at the language of the Quran, it's very obvious that the Quran was intending a full confirmation. And you can tell it by following the logic of verses. If you don't get anything else from this video, just get those two statements. One, if it was actually a true religion, it wouldn't confirm the Bible in any sense. And two, the Quran in its own text, it makes all these arguments. That would only make sense if it was a full confirmation. All right, so let's get into what are the main themes of the gospel and why do I think that they contradict Islam so bad? Let's go through them. All the gospels kind of start with, this is the good news about Jesus Christ, as is written in Isaiah the prophet, and then they quote Isaiah 40. And in Isaiah 40, the good news is the coming of the kingdom of God, and what's the big event of that? Well, it's God coming to be present with his people. Okay, so the good news is God is coming to be present with his people, and how does that happen? By preparing the way of the Lord. Well, who's the Lord? It's Jesus. So it's high Christology. It's baked into all of the synoptics. It's in their intros that the coming of God on earth is Jesus. That is a main theme, despite what Orthodox Lips and Dean were saying.
The question, Chris, you have to prove the hypostatic.
It is a main theme. So as soon as you get past the intro, you get into the baptismal scene where God calls Jesus son, which violates Islam. And they try to deny this. They try to say, well, if it's metaphorical, it's okay. No, if you read the text of the Quran, it says creation will rip itself apart if you say that Allah has a son. Muhammad said this stuff because he didn't know what was in the Bible and he couldn't read.
When as everyone knows, I can't read.
But anyway, so you're at the baptismal scene and the heavens tear open. And in ancient Jewish thought, the heavens are linked with the waters. It's Shemaim instead of Maim. And waters split whenever there's a creation event. So if you think in the Genesis story, God splits the waters. If you're looking at Moses and the people starting a new nation, a new birth of a new nation, the waters split. And so what the author is letting you know is that there's a new creation event happening in Jesus. And this is why Paul calls him the firstborn from among the dead. Because the idea was that at the end times, as is stated in Isaiah, God is going to make a new creation. And this is pointing to that. None of those themes are in Islam. It has nothing to do with Islam. It is a major event of the Gospels. After this, Jesus is tempted in the desert for 40 days. And he has this whole debate with Satan. And Satan says, if you're really the son of God, then do this. If you're really the son of God, then do this. And Jesus, instead of saying, no, I'm not the son of God, God doesn't have any sons, like he would say if he were a Muslim, instead he says, man doesn't live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God, etc., etc. And so he's stipulating that he is the son of God, but he's fighting with the devil about how to define the term son of God. And he's saying that he's not going to take power in these sorts of things in the Muslim kind of way, in the jihadi kind of way, the Nietzschean conquer everybody sort of way. Instead, he's going to allow himself to be sacrificed. And even his own disciple Peter tries to encourage him not to be crucified, and Jesus says, get behind me, Satan. So Jesus is very protective of this definition of Son of God that dies as an atoning sacrifice. He will argue with the devil and his own disciples to protect this identity. That's a major theme in the Gospels. It is not at all anywhere in Islam. He kind of preaches 100% the opposite of jihad. So if you look at the Sermon on the Mount, he says to walk the extra mile, turn the other cheek. And, the Jewish background that he's speaking into, they're angry at the Romans, and they're remembering whenever all the Jews conquered the Greeks, where we get Hanukkah and the defeat of Antiochus Epiphanes IV. And so Jesus is redefining what it means to be a covenant people, and redefining where that zealotry needs to go. In the time of the Maccabees, some priests stabbed another person who was making a pagan sacrifice, and it says that he was zealous for the Lord, and that was considered a good thing. And being zealous is a good thing, but Jesus wants the zealousness to be built around him instead of the national identity and nationalism. And Paul has to kind of learn this too, because Paul even calls himself zealous whenever he was trying to kill Christians. But he redefines what it means to be the covenant people around Jesus of Nazareth instead of his old zeal for nationalism. In the Quran, in Surah 9111, it says that Jesus taught jihad, and that's literally the opposite of what Jesus taught. He was an extreme pacifist, if you actually read the Bible. So that's a major theme, has nothing to do with Islam. In all of the Gospels, he walks on water and controls storms. These are powers that are deeply associated with Yahweh. You can see, like in the Old Testament, Job 9, 8 through 11, where Yahweh is said to tread on the wave alone. Yahweh alone treads on the waves of the sea, and he passes by and we don't recognize him. And Mark, which is supposedly this low Christology gospel, is the only one that records Jesus walking on the water, and it says he attempted to pass them by. It's referencing Job. It's saying, heads up, this is Yahweh. That's why Mark intros his gospel with John the Baptist preparing the way for the Lord, and then suddenly Jesus appears. Another miracle that appears in all the Gospels is the feeding of the 5,000, and this is a direct reference to Ezekiel 34. I mentioned this in my video on the Trinity. There's a passage about the disciples being puzzled, and they wouldn't have been puzzled if they had understood about the loaves and the fishes. Well, if you go through the logic of that, you realize it's because the miracle, the loaves and the fishes, is letting you know that this is Yahweh and the Messiah. And it's doing it in Ezekiel 34 type sense. So if you go and read Ezekiel 34, you see that Yahweh and the Messiah are feeding the people of Israel on the hills of Israel. And so if you see that miracle and understand what it means, you're not going to be surprised when Jesus can walk on water. Jesus uses a bunch of parables where he's always talking about the kingdom of God and how the kingdom of God is present but also advancing. This has nothing to do with Muslims. It has nothing to do with Islam. He never mentions an Arabian prophet. He never talks about Islam coming in the future. He says the kingdom, if this demon was removed by the hand of God, then the kingdom of God is upon you. And so he's saying that there is this very eminent and even present sense of the kingdom of God. And a lot of his parables, like the growing seed, are letting you know that even though you can't see it, the kingdom is present. There is a reference to the growing seed in the Quran, but it gets the details wrong. It says that there's a parable where a seed grows and the unbelievers see the growth of the seed and they get jealous. That is not in the Gospels. That is made up. That's where Muhammad halfway heard something and got it wrong. This video was originally 40 minutes long, but I'm just going to speed through the rest of it because I promised some friends that I would be finished by Thursday, so I'm going to finish. He wants to protect Jerusalem under his wings, like a mother hen protecting chicks under her wings. This is Yahweh language that Jesus applies to himself. It's high Christology, makes no sense in Islam. It's a major theme in the Gospels. Next, he predicts the crucifixion. This makes no sense in Islam. Why would he predict the crucifixion over and over when in mainstream Islam the crucifixion supposedly didn't happen? They cite 4157 to say this. The Last Supper, he has his disciples he issues out a new covenant where they eat his flesh and drink his blood in remembrance of him. This makes no sense on Islam. There's nothing about atonement theology in Islam or Jesus needing to die for people's sins, and that's a major theme in all of the Gospels, a major scene. He's disowned by Peter and betrayed by Judas. This makes no sense in Islamic theology, where if you're a true Muslim prophet, everything's supposed to go well for you and you win victories in battle and all this, but everything falls apart for Jesus. He's crucified and then mocked. This makes no sense in Islam, where everything's kind of Nietzschean. Instead, it's the upside-down kingdom of Jesus. When he dies and then he rises again, he applies Isaiah 53 to himself. Quran never even mentions Isaiah 53, never quotes it, has nothing to do with Islam. All right, that's it.